Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amie and Bev. Good morning.
Good day to you.
Good day. Good day.
So you were saying you got your window open and you're enjoying the fresh air.
I am clearing some air in the house. A little stuffy.
Nice.
I mean, after, during the winter, even with the air conditioner on, it gets a little stuffy sometimes. So I love when the cooler weather comes and open the windows and yum. We love it.
I love it as well.
And well, when it rains, I like to open the windows as well. The only issue I have is that like a couple of the windows have we have the awning, and a couple of the windows we don't. So we can't open those windows. Well, we could, but everything would get wet. And so it's difficult to get that flow when there's rain. So
nice.
Anyway, that's my dilemma of windows.
Lucky for me, we have a covered front door and a covered back door. And we have security doors on both the screen doors. So we have those open pretty much all night, all the time.
Oh,
I mean, that's just the way it is. Yeah. So there's always a constant flow.
Wonderful. That's so nice.
It is.
Good.
Now I can write my name in dust, but I mean, there is that.
Exactly. That's the only thing.
Exactly. You got to kind of decide, what do I want today? So yeah, I like the fresh air, so I go with the fresh air.
What am I willing to sacrifice today?
Good.
Awesome. What's on your heart?
What's on my heart? I'm not even really sure. There's just seems like a blur seems like so much growth is happening. And I'm listening to this Christy Whitman. She's freaking amazing. Like, it's just so, I think I mentioned her last week. It's awesome how one person brings you into the next person. Like, the teachers are always showing up if you just care to listen to the next part of the guidance, always. There's just been,
What does she talk about?
She's a channeler. She channels the council. And it's interesting when they come through. It's interesting if you ever watch channels, how each one of them does something different. We've got Esther Hicks that channels Abraham, and the way she does it, she's like, she takes a few breaths and then she's like calm for a second. Then she's got her eyes open and she carries on and walks the stage and talks about all the stuff and how Esther experiences Abraham as Abraham comes through the collective consciousness. And then you've got, there's Gillette, she's channels. And when she channels, like, you can see her start to set up, like when she's like, okay, well, let me get them. She'll put her head down and she kind of does there's like some movements, and then she'll sit up to you and her voice changes and she gets they get like a slight accent, or it's just an accent because it's not familiar to us, right? Not like it's Scottish or any of that kind of stuff. And then she starts talking it, and it brings forth this wisdom. People will ask questions, and it's in the information that they bring comes so quickly. Just like Suzanne Giesemann. Suzanne Giesemann does the same thing, but she says she'll notice her lip twitches. She doesn't really care for that look, but that's just her way of knowing that it's happening. And she's kind of gravitated beyond that, where she doesn't she'll just stop and she looks to her left now and she's like, oh, well, they're telling me, Sanaya says this or whatever. So it's interesting. So she channels and she's a guide, and it's so awesome when I listen to a lot of these teachers, because a lot of these people are saying the same things that we've been saying all along. The same things that resonate completely. There's just more pieces to it. So, but I've enjoyed really listening to her. She really, if people are having a struggle with abundance or lack or any of that kind of stuff, she really does kind of takes you into a different space of things. And then she even talks to you about how to listen to yourself. And it's all the same things we've been talking about, but I listen to her because I feel like this is the next part of my path. It's just pulling me. We kind of talked about it recently. When you feel like you're on your path, before I couldn't identify that I was on a path, I was doing these things. And now I'm recognizing I really have a deep knowing, and I almost feel a little emotional about it, that I know massage is going to be coming to an end. I just know it's a knowing. It's not a hopeful, it's not a I got to be done with this because I'm tired of it, or I can't fit this into my schedule. It's just a natural moving away from. It's transpiring right now. And it's going to go as fast as I allow it if I just let go and just let it be. However that looks. I'm not going to control what it looks like. I'm just going to go along for the journey. But I like to even have this conversation with you to even say that I even feel that way. Because before 2 years ago, I didn't feel that way. 2 years ago, I was struggling with so many other things, gym transitioning or separation, or, all these things that were going on at that time, and how much it has changed and grown since then. And I feel like there's so much still transpiring. Like there's such every day, every moment. It's like you ask what's on your heart. It's like there's like, what moment are we in right now? Because I have to really stop and reflect what moments are we, what can I bring to the table right now that's beneficial to people? Because everything right now is every single moment. It's every single moment of hearing the words that you just said. It's not, I wouldn't call it micromanaging, but it's having an awareness of and recognizing how often that we say things about ourselves. I talked about it recently. Someone asked me, like, can you say anything positive about yourself? And I was like stumped. I couldn't think of anything positive to say about myself at that moment. I mean, there's a million things that are positive, but at that moment, my mindset was in another mindset. It was on, oh, I don't like the way my skin looks right now, or whatever the conversation was. And I got lost in that place where, and when you're paying attention, you recognize I can't jump to the other side of that right that moment. It's going to take me a few minutes because I'm already in a space that doesn't feel good. And so to throw something that feels good into a place that doesn't feel good, you can't do it from there. So I had to walk myself through to find some positives to start saying. And then that made me, the whole way that it played out was so awesome, because now it makes me think all the time. What am I saying about myself? Because I'm saying that about somebody else too. If I'm judging myself, I'm judging others. It just is. It's just a matter of fact. It just is. It's a normal flow. So there's a million things on the heart. There's a million things we could talk about. But like I always say, I always ask, my guides, and I ask for spirit to just flow through and bring forward what we need to hear at this time.
Yeah, I think mine for me, I think I mentioned it last week, was it's just like getting back to the basics, coming back to, like you said, the self-talk. We do. Even as long as Bev and I have been doing this, we still have those moments that we dip down. And so, last week, it's one thing, it's funny. It's one thing to read a quote by Louise Hay. It's just like, oh, it's just all yummy. It's another thing to hear her say it, her voice, right? And last week I had that, she's transitioned, like 3 years ago. And to hear her voice and say the affirmations was completely different. It was just like a, I don't know, just this like huge wake up. Like, what do you do? As when you go, what are you doing? Why have you been talking to yourself like that? Or why have you been thinking that way? Or why have you been saying those things? When you hear Louise Hay say one of our affirmations, or just be talking. And then I have a new app that's through Hay House, and Wayne Dyer's on there. So I've been listening to him because I just love his voice. I love his humor and his wisdom. And for me, that's coming back to the basics. Those two people are like my foundation of where I started my healing process. And so to just hear their voices is like refreshing. I love all the other stuff that you turned me on to Suzanne Giesemann, which led me to Alex Ferrari, who talks to a lot of people about near death. Now you're talking about Christy Whitman. I'll probably go look her up too. It's all Dolores Cannon, all these people that have new people recently in the past few months that have come to my awareness. But Louise and Wayne, man, they're just like my foundational pieces that just really bring me back into here, you know?
Yeah, I totally get you. I totally get you. It's just like I would say Christy Whitman, her teacher, Esther Hicks. She was
Yeah.
actually going to classes and everything like that. And she's like, I planned this being on stage for 6 months. Like she's planned this thing because she's channeling. She's going to go on there and she's got it all worked out how it's going to go. And she says, by the time I got on the stage, I was exhausted. She said, the first things I said out of my mouth is like, I am envious of Esther and Abraham.
Mm.
And then she says, I don't feel that way anymore because now I do the same thing. I mean, it's really like she puts her head down. There's a couple little shakes, and then she's now speaking. The council is now speaking through her,
Yeah.
and the valuable information that flows through, right? So, but that's her basics. That's her basics. That's where she gets back to. I haven't gone back to. Actually, I guess they've caught me. They've snatched me up and now they're guiding me to the next place, the next place, the next place. And that goes back to that whole path. You know that you're on that path because automatically everything all the teachers show up, right? Well, because the students showed up. I'm
Right.
ready to show up now. And so now the teachers are like, we've been here all along. Just like me asking, I'm like, I really wish Mavis was still here because I would go learn from her. I really wish, and it's like I'm told immediately, we've got YouTube. You've got all these teachers that are still here. And it's like, you even have some of the recordings from the teachers that Mavis Patilla learned from. So it's like, there's so many people. And I listen to this stuff and it just, I'm trying to remember this gal. I just listened to her and I've got her, one of her books. She's on talking about chakras and everything like that. But she's another gal that was just interviewed. It's Michael Sandler. And he's always, woo, always making a noise. And at first that would bother me.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
At first he would bother me, but it's like once you get to know him and his story, he is such a beautiful soul.
Yeah.
And because at first it was off-putting for me when he would do that. And then it's like now he was interviewing.
He did that the first time.
Gosh, he's gone through so much and he's so vulnerable. He is so himself, like beat up as a kid and picked on and like the crashes that he's gone through riding his bike and his wife carrying twins that I think the baby's now a few months old, 4 months old, carrying twins. And one of them has to go because one of them, the other one's the heartbeat is beating for both those babies. And if it continues, it's going to take them both out. And it's like, that gives me goosebumps, but it's like, they're getting readings from Kim Russo and other people that are saying, she's always going to be there, but not necessarily saying out loud because I learn from all this stuff. And for me, it's like, if I have information like that, I'm not going to come out and say, hey, one of those children are not going to come into the physical, but they're always going to be with you guys. Like you don't say that kind of stuff. So you find a way that's gentle from spirits. Like there's all these learnings that they're showing me all this stuff. Each person that comes into my experience, but an amazing person, Michael Sandler, but he does lots of interviews. And he has a rooster that he calls Rue that he brings on quite often. Yeah. That's amazing because I would never think of having a rooster as a pet. But this other gal he's been talking to, she's like, I was listening to their interview recently, and it was so amazing how there are so many people that can get us into contact with things, in touch with things. When you have this asking within inside of you, I want this growth and I want to move forward, the person shows up. And sometimes, and if it's a video, you're sitting there like, why am I watching this? Turn it off. Because maybe you're not ready for it right that moment. But don't just get rid of it. Don't just discard it, but move on to the next thing. Maybe you weren't hearing properly. We have all these guides that are around us all the time, giving all this guidance. And the only way you can hear it is if you stop and listen. That's the only way. Yeah. If you can stop and cultivate it. I have been meditating a few times every day because I don't have a choice. Like I don't have a choice at this point. Before I had a choice, and now I feel like it's constantly, I still have a choice. I could say no, but the desire within inside of me is becoming so much louder that my existence period relies on that. That's my connection. That's my connection back into my heart. That's my connection with the great spirit, with God, with the universe, my spirit guides, everything. It's my connection with everything. If I'm going to communicate for people, then it's my communication with spirit, and it's loving and honoring all of that is. And the only way we can love and honor all that is by loving and honoring ourselves.
Yeah.
We cannot get there without doing that. It's just not possible. It's not.
Well, we don't have any control over anything else. So I
And
can't.
that's not even a control, right? That's a flow. That's like, I'm jumping on this boat. I'm jumping on this leap right now. Where are we going?
Yeah, right. It's like what is that? The undercurrent in the ocean, that stream. You get into that, boy, you're it can take you a while, a ways down, but we just don't, I can't control Bev's happiness in this moment, and she can't control mine. I could be as angry as I wanted to be right now, and she could do everything she could think of to lighten me up, get me out of the mood, whatever. But she doesn't have any. She is a now I lost the word. She can encourage me to be happier, to be lighter, but she don't have any control over what I decide to do. And I think people, forget that when they go out, when they step out of their house. Well, let's say when they get out of bed, especially if you live with people, you don't know what you're going to walk into, your family members, your coworkers, people at the grocery store. And we far too often determine our day, the whole day, our attitude about the whole day based on one encounter. That encounter could be stubbing your toe. It could be your kids, you're struggling with your kids to get them out of bed, getting them ready for school. It could be the person who gripes in the grocery line, the guy who cuts you off and flips you off in traffic. And, really in your mind, you didn't do anything wrong, but they're upset about something. So, we just don't have any control over any of that, but we have control over ourselves, our thoughts, our attitude, and what we choose to focus on. This is Bev and I have been talking about this since we started this podcast 2.5 years ago. And we're just going to keep saying it over and over and over because a couple reasons. If you've been listening to us for a while and you're getting tired of us hearing this, you're getting triggered for some reason, which means you're probably not practicing a good attitude. You're not being in control of your thoughts, right? It could be that, you're listening for us, but you're distracted. You're multitasking and listening to the podcast, but you're not really hearing what's being said. You may not listen to all the videos. So therefore, we're going to keep saying it, because if you're not listening to all the videos, then you're not hearing it enough. So we just don't have control over other people. We have control over ourselves, and being aware of what your thoughts are, being aware of those judgments, being aware of your attitude, being aware of what you're focusing on. It's a whole package. It's a whole package. However, pick one to focus on, to work on, because when you work on that one thing, it expands into the other areas without feeling difficult about doing it. That makes sense. Like, oh my God, I got to worry about what I'm thinking. I got to worry about what I'm saying. I got to worry about how I'm feeling. I got to worry about, right? And we put this huge pressure on ourselves to make these big changes. Pick one. And you know what? It's your mindset. It's always your mindset. Focus on your mindset, because that affects everything. And then you have control over that. You have control over that.
And if you do have that angry person, be in your space. Isn't that interesting? Is that a great question to ask? But it's also loving and honoring that person and allowing them to be in that space, as long as they're not hurting themselves or anybody else, allowing them to go through that emotion, allowing them to feel the whole experience. There's so much to be said for all that, honestly. And it's not for us. There was one time that we were having classes, and my go-to thing back in the beginning was I would crack jokes all the time because I always want to make people happy. I would, because that was my training growing up. And I remember during one of the classes, you had corrected me and told me that we each have a, basically it was not to make everybody laugh about the whole, not make everybody happy about the situation, allow them to go through their emotions. So I wasn't trying to shift everything. My training growing up as a child was I knew how to shift. I knew how to be funny. I knew how to crack a joke. I was always quick-witted, clever, always. And I could change the mood of everybody in the space. But that doesn't allow us to walk through these healings when these triggers happen to allow this emotional healing to happen, because we have this asking what's inside of us to want things to be different, and we can't have things different if we're still operating from the same old routines, the same learnings. So it's there was a lot to learn in that time frame for me, and at first, of course, I felt
You're like, bitch, I can do what I want.
I don't know if I'm coming back to this place because I just like to make people happy. It wasn't wrong. And you
No.
weren't wrong either. It wasn't wrong at all, but it was, now I'm on a different side of that to see how somebody has their healing and what they need to grow through.
Yeah.
It's not anything bad. It's just being there and holding space. If I could remember this gal that Michael was interviewing yesterday that I was talking about, she talks about streams of grace. She said there's a lot of times we can't do anything about a situation. Like, let's say that we're at the mall, and across the mall you're hearing a man yelling at his child. He's like yelling at his child. And if you can't get there, and if you can get there, maybe you're not able to handle the situation or whatever, you ask for streams of grace to go to that space. And that makes all kinds of difference in the world. And we think that we don't have control over a lot of things, and it's not really control. It's a matter of doing things and saying things. We're not supposed to control everything. Mavis Patilla, she's a psychic medium, channeler, whatever, teacher, a million things, has transitioned in August. She has talked about one of her guides, Miko-san, coming in, talking to her, and while she's in a group, and telling the group that I need you to pray for these children. And this is an incident happens before it happens. And she says, well, do we need to call and notify somebody? And he says, no, this is part of there's a bigger picture here. So I just need you to pray for the families that are left over. And he says, if you believe it, you're going to see an ad in the paper or an article in the paper in the next week. And a week later, there was a place, I think it was in Italy, that something blew up, and it blew up a school. And so, like a lot of these these children had transitions, but there's something so much bigger there. It's like you think about that group of people that were there and knew to pray, because you said it's one thing to read Louise's information that she's written down. It's one thing to read any of that stuff. It's another thing to hear their voice, because our voice carries such a magical power that comes along with it. And it's like, how are you using that power? And then when you listen to all these great people that are our foundations, that power is still there. It never went anywhere, ever. It's still right here. And so, like, when you hear that voice and that power, it comes forward right now, just as if they never had left, because they've never left. They're still here, and that energy is still right there. That power is still right there that gets you connected. And that's why, another thing you were talking about, why people, maybe you've already heard us say these things. Sometimes I didn't believe this. Sometimes I believe this stuff, but now I'm on a different level of my belief. I have a different understanding. So when we bring forward this information, the energy is brought forward differently, which means that our audience is now in a different energy to be able to receive this information.
Yeah.
So there's so much transitioning that's happened. It's amazing from the beginnings. I don't even know if I could tolerate listening to any of my
Go back
to
and
myself 2 years ago. I don't know, because of my mind, because so many things have changed. That's like talking about another person. That person's no longer here. I mean, really, I have changed so much from those beginnings. I can't even imagine.
just your energy has changed.
Yeah, we can't go back there. I mean, there is no going back. There isn't. Because
Right.
no matter how pissed off and no matter how much we're sad and we grieve and we're angry or any of those things, we can't take ourselves back. We've
Right.
already gravitated to that. At some point, you're going to see yourself standing and talking to yourself and like, okay, sweetheart, are you done having your temper tantrum?
Right.
Like, you're ready to go on to the next thing? Because then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I feel so much better right now. Let's go do this. Let's go take on the day. And that's just how we do it on a daily basis. If we would just be in that space of wonder as a child and know we're gonna have temper tantrums sometimes. Who cares? That just means I ain't carrying the sauce with me all day long of all the bullshit that I don't want in my life.
Right.
That means I let it go right then. I handled my emotions and my feelings right then. So that means I don't have to control when I feel blissful and happy. And if I want to skip through the store, I'll freaking skip through the store. Like I went back like this and I saw all of a sudden saw my mom flash into so my mom's here. So it's so awesome how this stuff happens. This is amazing. But yeah, so I just said all of a sudden, because I saw a picture of her, she was wearing a red shirt and puts her head back and she's like full on soul laughing, like in that beautiful place. It's funny how they just dip in. Because why? Because I'm vibrating in a higher vibration right this moment. So I'm easier for them to come into.
Right.
So this is amazing, but this is our journey, everybody. This is it. Like you can go kicking and screaming, or you can go there and with a space of wonder, always like, oh, I wonder what kind of messages I'm going to get today. Because my God, I'm getting messages lately.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
All the time, like
with
all
you.
the time.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, one of the things I've been doing every morning when I do my meditation, I have a notebook and I write down the date and I write down one question I've been focusing on. How can my life get even better? And at first, when I started doing that, I wrote down, how can my life, how did I write it? How can my life get better than this? And when I wrote that the first few times, I had this angst, like, what's wrong with your life? I'm like, what's wrong? It just had this kind of a negative to it. So I'm like,
Well, it felt
okay,
heavy. Just with
yeah,
you saying it felt heavy.
it was like saying my life's not good, like,
Yeah.
so I had to figure out how to rewrite that question. And so now I write, how can my life get even better? And I just sit and that's my focus. And I just let that question be present. I call on why with Suzanne Giesman's 3-minute sip of the divine, where she, call in the highest vibrational being available to you now. That's how I say it. I'm like, all right, come on, whoever's the highest vibrational being available to me right now, come on in, let me know, let me feel your presence and just connect. And then I ask, how can my life get even better? And I sit with that question. Sometimes it's a sentence, sometimes it's a word, it just varies, and I'm okay with that. I'm like, okay, well then that becomes my focus. And so I've been playing with that. It's been a couple weeks now, so
Nice.
it's but yeah, so again, we go back to asking, like we've been talking about for a long time, is ask the question so the information can come forward. And the higher your vibration is, the more you're in that playfulness, that joy, then the easier it comes, right? Because when we're in a victim mode or blaming mode or angry mode, like we put blinders on and we don't have the full view. So we're only seeing what we're focused on, which is a problem. We're focused on a problem, a situation, an experience, a person that's, triggered us. And so when we're in that lighter space and we ask that question, how can my life get even better? And just watch things unfold and how beautiful it is. One of the things that happened yesterday was, I've known this girl. A lady stopped by my house. I hadn't seen her in several months. And I've known her for about 4 years, maybe. She became vulnerable yesterday and shared with me her story. And I was like, I've known this girl for how long? And I didn't know this story at all. And it had to do with addiction, depression, suicidal. I won't say she didn't try to commit suicide, but she was suicidal. I had zero idea about this. I had no idea. She never shared it. And, to me, that's like, how can my life get even better? Wow. When somebody is that vulnerable to share a story about their life with you, that just opens you up even more. You're just like, first of all, that she even felt comfortable enough to share that with me was, that's a blessing. That's like feeling like special. Like I felt special, like, oh my gosh, she's sharing this with me, because she's telling me, she's like, there's very few people I've shared this story with. Wow. And to know, first of all, I know now I'm not alone in the whole idea of depression and being suicidal and all that. But here's a person I've known for several years that I didn't even know she had a story linked to that. So, how can my life get even better? And just watch how people show up in your life, how you're guided to other teachers or spiritual influencers, how gifts show up randomly, which is amazing, right? It's being in that space of gratitude, for one. I mean, if you want to practice anything, practice gratitude. That's definitely a mindset. But gratitude, you focus on all the goodness that's happening every single moment and all the goodness that's already around you. And just because you're breathing, you're worthy of all the goodness. You already are. And I can speak from that because for several years, I didn't feel I was worthy of it. Now I'm like, fuck you, bitches. I am open and receiving all the goodness the universe wants to bring to me right now. Because I only have this moment. So, bring it.
That's funny. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
It is. It is fun. And that's getting us back to the space of fun. And if you think about it, you're asking yourself that question, and you're being shown how much better your life has gotten, because you were in the same, you maybe not the same exact space, but you were in that space, that space of depression, that space of suicide, suicidal tendencies or thoughts. I mean, to be in that space, and so many people are, it's awesome. It's awesome to see how vulnerable people could be. And it is true. It's a gift, because when people come in and they tell me things that just like your experience, you would never have known had been in their experience. You would never know, because they don't portray that. They don't walk around with this big old sign with them saying, hey, guess what I've been through? This right here, guys.
Yeah.
Still struggling with it, or whatever, but nobody does that. And that's the thing about getting in touch with your intuition and because we're all intuitive and we're all psychic, and everybody carries everything around in their energy. It may not be right on their clothes. It may not be right on their skin, but it's in their energy. Yeah. And the more connected that we are, we can see where their pain's coming from, and not for us to go in and fix that pain, but to be sympathetic, to be empathetic, to have an understanding, to hold space for, to say a prayer for, to send streams of grace. Whatever that looks like, there's so many things. It's an opportunity, and it's not just this doesn't just get us in connection with ourselves and spirit. This gets us connection with everybody that is spirit. We're all part of spirit. We just have this little physical looking skin suit on right now. That's all. That's the only thing that's different between us and spirit. They're still growing just like we're growing here. I tell people all the time, they're like, well, yeah, but then they died, and it's like, now we can't have these conversations. I'm like, bullshit. If I'm sitting, I mean, because I don't believe that. There might have been a time that I might have believed, but now it's like, no. Now when I'm sitting there, I'm like, Thank you, Jim, for all the meals that you always cooked for me. Thank you for always having things taken care of. When I was out doing the yard or whatever, he was taking care of everything inside the house. Thank you, because I didn't appreciate it as much as I could have.
Right.
And there was a lot of times I didn't appreciate because I was too wrapped up in what I was doing. But he was always showing appreciation for what I was doing. And I wasn't always showing appreciation.
And wrapped up
So
in everything that was going wrong.
exactly, because that's what I could see. That's what I learned from. And then it's like you hear about like this Christy Whitman talking about her parents. Her mom was like, "Ooh, they got buku bucks," and the dad's like saying stuff. Oh, that money's like the root of all evil. Basically, if they got money, God only knows they're being greedy right now, and they're all these things. So you get raised with this duality just from home. So then you go into the world, and she says, I remember there was like something that came up, and I'm asking myself, like, where did that? As soon as she has this thought, she's like, well, she could recognize that she's in this space, in this angry space or whatever. And she's like, where did this begin? Where did this thought start? And all of a sudden it hits her that she has lack. You're never going to have enough, no matter what you get. Because she had learned that all this stuff was on the outside of her to earn and to gain. And it wasn't true. It was all within inside. And when she started going to meditation and stuff, it took her inside to recognize. But we don't know how we're operating until we start asking ourselves these questions. And the questions get better and better and better over time. But with all that being said, I can go back to the same conversation. I can still now appreciate. I may not have appreciated then, so now I do. So there's no ending because there is no separation. The only thing that's separating us, which is not like under a microscope, is this perceived skin suit that we're in. These perceived clothes that we have on top of the skin suit. That's all. That we are totally in connection with everything. It's just remembering, and it's believing too, because we've got to have this. Your imagination's got to be in play. I say it imagination because we've been so separate from this for our lives. A lot of us.
Yeah.
We want the daydreamers, right? We want the daydreamers and the people that the imagination of these creators that are creating movies that get your attention and they take you back to a child memories and make you feel like a kid again. We want all that stuff because that gets us back into this connection. It never left us. It's always been right here. And by connecting in with all that, then we recognize how we're connected with everything. And there was nothing to lose. Thank you, Wayne Dyer. Thank you, Louise Hayes. Thank you, Mavis Patilla, Janet No Havoc. Thank you, all of you guys, for being such great teachers that I'm finding you after many of you have transitioned, that's fine because now they can reach me. They couldn't reach me before. I'm reachable now.
Right.
So it's just what an amazing life is, amazing all the time. And when I start getting wrapped up into something else, and I would recommend the same for everybody else, is like, wait a second, how is life amazing for you? Because life is amazing. Like there's messages like we were just talking about. We're receiving messages all the time. It could be the time. It could be a bumper sticker. It could be a person walking by. It could be overhearing a conversation. It could be a freaking message that you're just relaxing in meditation and all of a sudden you start hearing some conversation. It's just not getting wrapped up in that conversation, be a witness of, and then see what information is coming forward. We have opportunities around us all the time. And we also have opportunities to look at all the things that we don't want in our life, because that's an opportunity as well. It's not good or bad. It's just, I don't want any of that in my life. That's not my experience. For me, it's always been a natural thing. Well, not always been a natural thing. I wasn't aware of it, but I always have a tendency to want to see things in more of a positive light. Ever since The Secret, I guess, maybe that's when I started recognizing there was more. But that feels right to me. It's like you can argue with me all day long and say, well, the world, this is happening in the world. We've got lots of people dying from COVID and blah, blah, blah. You can say all these things to me. And now I'm going to find a positive. Well, was there time to transition? Because we've all, in the bigger picture, there's something for us to learn from this on an individual basis, on a global basis. We have something that's affecting the whole world. It's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Send some grace all over the world. Send it to yourself.
And even the people who have a smile on their face. I know I was at one of those people years ago. They may still have discord going on within themselves. So even the happy people you pray for, right? Or send grace to.
Feel them. You can feel them. I have so many people clients come in and the next thing you know, you're like, a client that walks in all the time, happy, always got like, always looking at the positive side of things, everything. And I'm working on, I'm just like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I don't want to be here on this planet anymore. I don't want to be in this skin suit anymore. And I'm like, wait a minute. I was feeling fine. And then I was like,
I know.
and then it's just giving voice to that person. Have you been feeling this? Does that make any sense? I'll say, does that make sense? Because this is what I'm kind of picking up. And maybe I'm misinterpreting it, because I'm going to be open to that, because I've got my own, screen that I'm using, my
Right.
own experiences that are going to be giving you examples of what I'm feeling. And they'll be like, yeah, I've been feeling like that. Well, I just want you to know that I see you and I'm here for you. That's all that's all I could do at that moment, besides sending prayers. That they find their way, that they find whatever that looks like for them. There's just always a bigger picture, right?
Right. And here they are to probably feeling shame that they're feeling that way and nobody would understand. And here's somebody giving them a massage and going, hey, are you feeling like this? Like, to me, I'd be like, whoa, somebody's hearing me, and I didn't even say anything. And then I would feel a connection, like, oh, somebody's hearing me. Somebody's getting me, like somebody cares. And I didn't even have to say anything. Right. So connection. And that's we all need each other. We do.
That's a light worker, right? That's a light worker. Everybody's a light worker. You really are. If you want to choose to step into that power, or if you want to be the media mogul or whatever you want to do, but there's a power in all that. It's like, how are you bringing yourself? How are you showing up for the greatest good of all?
Yeah.
And every day. There's everything. And we all have access to us, all of us. It's just a training of that muscle. And then as you go asking yourself questions and asking bigger questions, what are, simply, what are my blocks? What do I need to see through right now? And then being open to how that shows up for you. Because it's not always going to show up for you. And you can ask, we have control over this too. So it's not always going to show up where they're going to send you a sign, or you're going to be in meditation. They're going to send you all these words. Yeah, they can. It's how you want to set it up. Cindy Dale is who I was thinking about earlier. That's who Michael Sandler was interviewing, and she's written books and everything else. She's got a lot of good information.
Her name, Cindy,
so
what?
Cindy Dale, Dale. I think it's Cyndi. I think is how she spells her name. I think she's done stuff for Shift Network. She's been around. She's been around a lot. She's got a good energy. I enjoyed listening to her. But I don't even remember what I was saying about her, but she brings forward a lot of information, and she talks about this connection. She freely, just in the interview with Michael Sandler, is freely giving out information of how you can connect to yourself. So, and connect to all this that we're talking about. And you have to listen to how it resonates with you. Like I said before, Michael Sandler, I couldn't, he would do his woohoo thing, and I just couldn't get past it. And then I heard his story when Kim Russo was on there. Then I saw him in a totally different light. Now it's like I see him. But that's what we're all learning, to actually see people, not with our 5 senses that we have here, but with our other sense, with our real sense, our connection to everything. Because now from that space, we're a benefit to ourselves and everybody that's around us. Now you're allowing that light to shine. I can't remember who I listened to recently. I mean, gosh, it could have been, I don't even know. One of the persons I listened to recently, it'd be Christy Whitman, saying the council, if you could see how lit up the world is now, we are more lit up now than we ever have been before. And it's because we are recognizing that we are light workers.
Yeah.
We are this light. There is no separation. It is us. It was described as, if you have the sun, we're the rays off that sun. If God is the sun, we're rays of the sun, which means we're all part of God. That means that God is within. It's not something that's separate. It's not something I have to call on. And then I go back to Mavis Patilla or somebody else I listen to. It's like almost kind of odd that you're asking yourself to save yourself. Like it's just being open for the information that can flow to you. because we're all connected. Everything is connected. We're just rays from that sun right now. We're this light, brighter than we've ever been. So, I mean, that says a lot. And they're talking about one person that's in their light. And we're not, am I always in my light? No, I'm not always in my lights.
Sometimes that dimmer switch gets.
Yeah. Sometimes I drop that freaking light bulb or flashlight in the mud and you can't see anything for a little bit, so you rinse it off. But to be in that space more often, that we can change millions of lives, millions.
Yeah.
One person.
Yeah.
How powerful is that? So that helps you recognize, I'm going to go ahead and keep the mud washed off as much as possible. I'm going to step into it once in a while because I'm going to have my emotional triggers, because I want to go even higher than where I'm at right now. I want to rise even to a higher frequency than I am right now. And the only way that I could do that is by looking at myself and seeing, why is this showing up for me right now?
I'm going to tell you a story while I'm thinking about it. It's along those lines.
Nice.
My son I'm just telling you, he's an incredible human being. And it's not because I'm his mom, it's because he really is. And he posts things on stories on Facebook. I have to always think about where they it's Facebook or Instagram. I don't know. Anyway, so he posted one that he was at a gas station and there was some words between him and another person for whatever reason. And the guy was my son was getting, I think he was getting fuel, and this other guy was in his vehicle, and you know, the guy's trying to taunt my son, and he's like, well, come on over here if you want to, you know, egging him on. And my son's like, listen, if I come over there, I'm going to give you a hug. The guy's like, what? My son's like, if I come over there, I'm going to give you a hug. And the guy kept talking smack. So my son went over and gave him a hug. And then the whole energy of the whole conversation just stopped, because my son's like, dude, you just need a hug. You okay? You know, and so changed the whole dynamics of the whole situation. The guy kind of, you know, said, oh man, I'm sorry, you know, and just, it was amazing. And I'm just like, we all could do that. We all have that ability. So, you know, over these past 2.5 years of us doing this, we talk about, you have control of yourself, right? You have control of yourself. And I hear people have said this before, I don't have control over my thoughts. I don't have control over me, whatever the story is. It's the healing that has to take place. And it's not very often I tell people that they need to do, must do, or have to do anything, because we all have choices. But the reason why you're getting triggered by the guy cutting you off and then flipping you off is because there's a story that you're still hanging on to from childhood, a wound that is still in existence within you. And that is triggering you. That experience is triggering you. The coworker who's an asshole, right? They're triggering you. You have control over how you respond or react to that situation, to that person. But the reason why we get triggered is because of those childhood wounds. And it's the healing that is important to do, so that these triggers are either they're diminished, meaning they may, you know, the triggers may still be there, but every time you get triggered, it gets less and less, because each time you're going to do more and more healing work with yourself. And then it's like, now if for the most part, I'm not going to lie, I still have some triggers in there. When they show up, then I address them. But if somebody lashes out at me for whatever reason, it's a prayer. I send them a prayer, and it's not out loud. It's within myself. You know what? I hope that whatever they need to do their own healing work, I send them love, send them streams of grace. Now that I know that terminology, send them streams of grace, right? Do what I do from a space of love and healing, instead of a space of lashing out and being angry at them. Because if I'm going to lash out and be angry, then I'm not doing my vibration any service, or the environment any service, or the vibration of this entire world. I'm not being any service to the healing process of the planet, meaning the people. You know, the people, we got to do some healing within ourselves. It always starts with yourself. It starts with yourself. You're the focal point, and it's up to you to do your process of whatever it might be to heal those wounds and live from a space of being lighter. I'm not even saying to be in your joy. Sometimes we struggle to get there in that space, but just be lighter. Because when I know that when you go through your healing process, there will be some forgiveness work that will be done. That is a must as well. And you know what? Again, it starts with you. It starts with yourself, forgiving yourself. And when you go through that process, compassion follows. Forgiveness and compassion go hand in hand from my perspective. And when you have compassion for yourself, it is so easy to have compassion for others when they're in a space of anger and judgment and criticism and fear and denial and all the lower vibrational emotions that come under that blanket, that there's compassion for where they are with themselves because they haven't done their work and they're getting triggered and they're lashing out. And your choice. And again, that is, to me, as I'm talking about this out loud, again, that all falls under coming back to the basics. Is the basic foundation is beginning with yourself to heal your wounds, your emotional wounds from your experiences as a little person with the adults that quote unquote raised you to the best of their ability. I can laugh about it now, it's pretty comical now, but I couldn't be here doing this if I was still in that space of my emotional wounds. Bev and I would probably be blubbering, crying weirdos, not even, just wallowing in our right or wrong.
Yeah, it's true. And not to say that I don't ever get there, because I do get there sometimes, but I don't spend the time there.
Yeah.
Because that's just like, that's spending all the time in a problem and you can't find a solution in the problem. So everything does look a little bit different than that, for sure. Your whole perspective on life changes. Really, you do see people, to see your son walking over and doing that, it's really being aware of your intuition and your psychic abilities, because that's everybody has it. Psychic just means that you're into their energy.
Yeah.
Not like going through and exploring it and violating their personal space, but having an awareness for their benefit, and to be able to see a person. That person needs to be seen. That person needed to be hugged, because that person probably wasn't raised in that way. It probably wasn't shown in that way. And now to have this experience, because it's somewhere, even in the person that might come across as a bully, they still have something inside of them that still needs that loving and nurturing. And, even getting back to basics, maybe your basics is a roof over your head, food. How are you taking care of yourself right now? How are you loving yourself right now? How are you honoring yourself? Are you feeling sick and making yourself go to work? That's not honoring yourself. That's your body telling you that it needs a break, because inside you know that you need a break, but you're trying to push past through everything. So there's basics. And then that's where meditation's so great. Basics. I'm just going to take 4 deep breaths right now. That's it. That's as long as my meditation's going to last, but I'm going to do it.
Right.
And it's basic. It's so simple. It's not stopping. It's not closing your eyes and then stopping your mind. It's not stopping it at all. It's being aware of that mind. It's being aware of what the words are coming across right now. It's being aware of these to-do lists. Oh, okay. Well, does that need to be done right this moment? Oh, okay. Well, if it does, then I'll get it taken care of. If the baby's crying, I'll get it taken care of. But otherwise, it's something that can wait a few minutes. It doesn't, a couple of breaths. It's just so basic, right? Like you were saying, but it's probably even for some, it's even more basic. How can I
And
feel?
what might seem basic to me might be like a struggle for somebody else. Taking
Yeah,
those 4 deep breaths, right?
yeah, yeah.
Just
Well,
learning to
sometimes
sleep could be the basic thing to learn, is how to
in that
breathe.
moment, yeah. And it's for that moment, right? It may not, that basic need doesn't mean this is the list of today that my basic needs. It means that moment might call on that, just needing those breaths, right?
Yeah.
That moment might call on listening to Louise Hay's, like right now, it's got to happen.
Yeah.
Because no, and the way you know is by listening.
I just looked at the clock, it's 11:01. I'm like, woo. I get excited about that. Not to change the subject, but that's exciting.
It is exciting, but that goes along with everything. It doesn't change the subject. That's the message.
Right.
Everything has a freaking message, and it's just if you want to pay attention to it, if you want to listen to it. The basic message is you came here with a first, middle, and a last name. Some people don't have a middle name. You have nicknames. There's a reason that you have all those things. Think about this. I was thinking about this yesterday. King men. Why, of all places? Because there's so much information that's brought even with that name. And before I used to think, oh man, I don't like it here. I grew up here, blah, blah, blah. You know, I could find all these negatives. There's a reason that we're here right now. There's a reason that we're here right now. There's a reason why we have our names. There's a reason why if you do numerology, you find your numbers, you find your life path number, you find your year number, you find there's all these things, all these messages that we've given ourselves, starting basically, which we've been fed all of our lives. What's your horoscope? Like basic stuff. And then now you can have, I'm a Taurus, so you can have an evolved Taurus or an unevolved Taurus. Well, now I'm beyond both of those because I don't even know how long ago, but I had the dream that I had a tattoo of all of the constellations of all of the horoscopes on my back. So, and that was a reminder to say, there is no separation. We are all connected. We are all things. We are all, and we are nothing at the same time. It's a beautiful place.
There you have it. Words of wisdom from Beverly Brand. Thank you.
And Amie Wade.
My friends, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We hope that you've received some words of wisdom, something to implement, something that will bring ease to your journey, your life experience, and share from a space of kindness. Make that your practice. Share from a space of kindness, because when you're kind to yourself, you'll be kind to others. It goes hand in hand.
Yeah. And just reminding everybody, it starts with you first. Everything starts with you.
Something that what I've repeated over and over this year is my life, my responsibility. And that includes my joy. It's my life. It's my responsibility. It's nobody's job to make me happy. I'm not paying anybody to make me happy. So I have to do that. It's not anybody's job to do that. They can encourage me, but it's not their job.
100%.
All right, my friends, Tea Time with Amie and Bev. We'll be back next week.
Have a great one.
Take care.